Hi there, back to talk about another track of mine. This one's called Tonal Drift. It's another tune on my most recent album, Room Tones. I talked about Gristlinia lucida, and this is a similar kind of breakdown video. Obviously, if you want to check out the original track, you can take a look in the description for this video, and I'll make sure there's a link there. So I'm using some software called Bitwig, and I don't think there's too much I'm going to say that's actually specific to Bitwig, but just FYI, I guess. I assume if you're checking this out, it's because you make music yourself. So yeah, this is Bitwig, and I guess in terms of how I start writing music, I normally work over here in what's called the Clip Launcher, and in this view you're basically working with loops. And I'm pretty sure with this track I started with this chord progression, which is kind of shimmering around in the background now. And it's of course going to go silent as I mute it, or as I solo it, but as it says in the name, I very helpfully actually reminded myself this is an F-sharp Mixolydian, so, you know, basically F-sharp major scale, but with a -7. And all I've actually done when I actually look at the notes in here is basically alternating between the one chord with a bunch of delays on that, and then it goes to the relative minor, so it's going from F sharp to D sharp, basically, you know, F sharp major to D sharp minor. And that's all it does for the whole track. And for me, working with kind of ambient music, I quite like this kind of not functional approach to harmony, where it's just kind of sitting there. And I'm pretty sure this is how I started writing the track. I just started working on a you know, just an idea with a few chords using a synthesizer built into Bitwig. This is using a wavetable, using the K+ Strong algorithm, if that means anything to you. And then I've sent that into a couple of different delays, 2 instances of a plugin called Unfiltered Audio Silo, and I've exported the wet signal of that and, you know, bounced it to its own audio track, which is this sound here. And the reason I've done that is because I get a bit fussy when I get near the end of writing a track, where I want to make sure that when I listen back, it's going to play back exactly the same way each time. And silo is like a granular delay kind of an effect, which often introduces kind of random artifacts and, well, just random elements. And that's what I love about it, but I also want to be sure when I'm getting towards the end of finishing something that, you know, it doesn't just go random in a way that I really hate. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. And so I think I'm actually not using 2 instances of Silo. I'm using Silo and Sandman Pro, both from Unfiltered Audio. One's kind of a granular reverby effect. I'll jump back a bit so you can actually hear it. And then that's going into a delay. Sandman Pro, yeah, in this case is a kind of a reverse delay effect. So that thing of working on an idea and then bouncing it out is something that you'll actually see throughout this track, and it's a really typical way that I work. So I was obviously mucking around with that one synth sound and had some ideas there. I'll go to the one chord loop, which happens throughout the whole track. I'll just kill that stuff off. So this is another one where I've bounced stuff out. I'm just gonna reveal the unactivated tracks that I've got sort of lurking in the background. So the original one chord loop was going forwards, and somewhere in the course of writing this track I probably exported the whole thing reversed it just in a sound editor and then just listened to the whole thing backwards. It's something I do when I'm a bit stuck and I'm not really sure whether I like what I'm doing, because sometimes it just sounds better backwards. And then I'll often come back into the original track, and rather than reversing the whole thing, I'll think, well, that particular element sounded really good reversed. So this is probably one of those situations. If I reactivate this one, we can hear... Oh, it's fading out. Just going to jump back. It's pretty subtle, but this is just a kind of shimmering chord on a pretty, may not look it, but a pretty simple synth preset that's just provided in Bitwig, and I'm really happy to use presets. I'm not at all opposed to working with presets unless I think they sound bad, and then I'll change them. But I think we shouldn't be precious about that level of detail. Like, I think you're kind of missing something in music if you are really stressing about, oh god, I have to tweak every sound from the bottom up, and I have to do that myself. But in this case, I obviously thought this sounded better backwards. So what I've done is I've done automation on this that kills the sound by filtering it, basically. So if I jump ahead to where that's kicking in, it's reducing, it brings up the resonance and reduces the cutoff on a low pass filter, on what's called a Sallen key filter. So that's obviously that then becomes the start of the track in terms of what's actually being bounced, because I would have recorded the entire thing and then flipped the entire thing. So that's why that sound actually fades in the final version. So I'll show you that one. If we go back to the start and kill this. Ooh, sorry, I'm going to go back to 1. So it's fading in from nothing, and that's because it's coming up from a low pass filter that's basically removed all the frequencies, slowly revealing the high end. And then I did a similar thing with the next part that I'm going to talk about. So that's the piano there. So I'll just mute and jump to the piano as you hear it in the track. So again, we've got a reverse piano, and it's just an audio file bounced down from something that I created via MIDI or using note data. So in this case, the piano, if I activate this one and activate this one, so in this case, I would have started out here with just this one loop going round and round. And for whatever weird reason, that's going from that's the 3rd to the 4th in the key in terms of the notes. And I've got a bit of randomization on this, so the velocities are varying each time, which you can see by the small coloured bars. So each time this loops around, at the end of 2 bars, it changes velocities. And it's a classic kind of 3s against 2s, kind of dotted feel. And that's playing on a good old freebie, Spitfire Audio's Labs soft piano. And I guess I've changed some parameters in there, but that's it. And then what I did with that is I then introduced basically MIDI echoes. So if I turn this on, what have I done here? Come on. So what you're hearing now is the original sequence plus these seemingly random echoes that are jumping around. And as I say, these are MIDI echoes rather than actual audio. And one of the parameters that I can change in the echoes is the actual pitch of each subsequent note. So as stuff is echoing away, it's actually changing pitch, and that's being modulated according to some LFOs over here with a bit of sample and hold. So it's just picking up new notes every beat, basically, of the bar. Sorry, when I say it's picking up new notes, it's changing pitch value every quarter beat. Yeah, and so this just goes round and round, and I probably just sat here and listened to this for ages, and then at some point, again, because I like to sort of get to that point where I feel like things are going to be predictable, I would have shifted to exporting out that 2-bar loop so that you can see all this variation here. These are all the velocities. So that slight sort of humanization or randomization of velocities, that's actually been exported now, and it's always going to be the same each time. And then on that version, I then essentially rendered the wet echoes, if you like, so not the original notes, but everything else. I rendered those to a second track, which is the more piano notes track. And then I'll just do a bit of fiddling around. So if I just oh, sorry, the other thing I didn't say about the echoes is this key filter here then forces those transposed notes into the right key. So I just wanted everything to stay in the same, so it's purely diatonic, staying in F-sharp mixolydian. So yeah, so that's the joy of that key filter there. And I mean, to be honest, I don't particularly like the way this sounds going forwards, but it's the kind of thing I might try in order to just sort of generate material and then do something else to basically push it until it is at a point where I like it. So in this case, that's reversing it. Yeah, so I exported the wet version of the echo. So I'll just kill that. I can probably kill that. And then what I'm doing now is I'm just going to send that the exported stuff back into here. So I should be able to just grab. Oh no, it still thinks it won't let me create a feedback loop. What do I need to do? I need to turn off the input. Okay. Cool. So now I've got 2 lots of piano notes over here. And this is still just note information, like MIDI data. So I could see that on the piano roll. Yeah, and it kind of feels a little bit like someone's kind of playing a bit of a solo around this kind of steady, repeating riff, if you like, the 2-note thing. But the joys of then exporting that and then reversing it is that I don't need to worry if any particular run sounds a bit crap, because, it's going to sound different and just kind of psychedelic and swirly once it gets to the point of being reversed. So yeah, so I exported the combined piano output and have that bounced to this, bounced to one track and then reversed. So I'll just delete these ones just to get them out of the way. Yep. So in the context of the track, it sounds like this. Cool. So there's only 2 more things to talk about, really. So there's one more synth layer, which I've described as bass here. And this is another one that fades in. And it's using another just kind of synth straight out of Bitwig. It's got a chorus and some EQ, some distortion. And for whatever reason, I put the bass on the 4th of the key, which is a really kind of strange, unresolved kind of place to be. But that's probably why I did it, because I probably thought it was boring to, the classic would be to just do the one, right? Just to, if it's F sharp mixolydian, we'll just, pedal away on F sharp. And what I'm doing here is I've done some automation where it's bringing in it's bringing down the cutoff on our high pass filter. So this is something I really commonly do rather than fading something in by changing the gain. Instead, I start in a place where basically you've got a high pass at the point where you've pretty much cut out the entire sound, so it's as good as silent, and then just kind of fade it in over the track. And what I do, if you look at where these line up, is just that kind of classic move where basically I'm letting one element build up and do its thing and then cut as I introduce the next element in the track. So in this case, this bass is slowly coming in and I let it kind of do its thing fully in the mix for 8 bars, and then bring in the reverse piano, and as the first reverse note hits on the 1, the bass goes. So I'll just jump forward. You probably don't need 8 bars of this. I'll unsolo it. So this... Yeah, and I really like that kind of a feeling where it's suddenly like the bass just cuts and it's, it's the reverse of the drop, I guess, where you just feel like suddenly it sort of opens up. And to introduce a new element and put that kind of in the higher end of things at that time, that's I just love that kind of trick. It kind of feels a bit simple to me, but I don't mind being simple. I'm not here to be complex. I'm here to make music I like, and I really like that move. And so the final thing that you can hear in the track is what sounds kind of percussive, and it's actually when I was making the track, a bellbird or korimako landed in my backyard, and it's a classic New Zealand bird for those of you outside New Zealand, and it just sat there singing away, and I was excited, and I just went outside and recorded that. Interestingly, I can see that was pretty much exactly a year ago that I made that recording. And all I've done is I've just captured a particularly kind of, I don't know how to talk about that sound, a kind of blippy but clicky sound. Like, it sounds really percussive to me. And so I just edited a part out of that recording. I've put a fade basically to just sort of, I'm letting the end of the note and then a kind of click, and it's a kind of real kind of glottal, throaty click. I've let that come through in the mix, and then I'm running that into some delays. So that's going into, I think there'll be another copy of Sandman. Oh no, it's Fault. So yeah, Fault's actually officially a frequency shifter, but with a delay in the mix, and that adds that kind of gurgly, sort of pitch bendy, sort of almost like a kind of like a scratch through delay, that kind of a sound. Yeah. And then I've done a similar thing here that I did with the first, the chords that I was describing at the start, where I've got an instance of Silo and an instance of Sandman Pro again, I'm pretty sure. So weirdly, all the effects I'm using in this track are all from unfiltered audio, which is not normal, but maybe this is when I just got them. I don't know. Maybe I just went, yeah, obsessing with unfiltered audio. So what you're hearing now is the kind of the completely wet version of that. And then what's actually coming through in the final track is like down here I've bounced that wet signal. Yeah, okay, that's pretty super subtle. But yeah, so again, just making sure that when I completed the track that it played through predictably each time. And then the last piece is actually that when I went out to record the Korimako, it ran away. So it obviously wasn't too thrilled. I managed to record it for a minute, but then it left. And so I just cut out those pieces, and I've got them over here in the clip launcher. Cut out the sound of it leaving, and then I also just tried reversing that and just ended up alternating those in the mix. So structurally, if we wait a moment, we're going to hear it fly away. Yeah, there it goes. It's pretty subtle, but it's there. And then this is just happening every 8 bars, basically. It just alternates, just forwards and backwards. So if we just give it a moment, we'll hear that same slice of the recording just played backwards. Yeah. And that's it, really. So there's not too much more to say, and it's pretty simple in terms of the harmonies and so forth, and the number of layers. I don't go absolutely nuts on the layers. I have much more detailed tracks than this, but I kind of wanted to put this out there as a sort of honest example of I was going to say how little is happening in some of my tracks. I think there's still plenty of activity there, but it's not. You don't need to faff around too much with the details, really, in my mind. Perhaps for you this is lots of faffing, but there we go. So I'll wrap that one up there, and I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, then definitely feel free, flick me a message somehow, including on this YouTube channel. Cheers.